Hello, everybody, and welcome to the first ever podcast from the Apex Zone. This is BioSentinel speaking. I'll guess I'm like the host for this. I'm the one recording. And yeah, welcome to this. But in any case, let's get into the meat of it. I was thinking of talking about online relationships and, how relevant they are in our modern world. I don't know if you guys want to talk about that as well. Like, I'm totally up for having a discussion about it. But
yeah, I'm fine with the discussion like that. I mean, I have no personal experience with online dating, for the matter.
Yeah, nor do I. But that's what kind of makes me interested, because I have friends who have online dated in the past and are even currently online dating. So I find it difficult to get into their minds and see where they're coming from, because let me just lay down my opinion on online dating. To me, it seems kind of pointless, because you're going to be miles apart. Typically, it's like a thing where, one person is in one country and the other is in a different one. So
they're just like states apart.
Or that, yeah, exactly. But in any case, it's going to be a distance which is, untraversable, because they're just too far away, and that's why they would online date, because the distance is too great. And that kind of bothers me, because if you want to be in a serious relationship with somebody, you have to be there. You have to be able to kind of like talk to them face to face, touch them, kiss them, whatever it is. If you want it to be serious, you got to be there with somebody, because
yeah, physical affection is kind of part of the relationship ideals.
Exactly. That's, my thoughts is exactly, because despite there might be some kind of level of intimacy when it's, a screen, when you're talking behind a screen, but it's just not the same when you're there in person, physically.
Yeah, it's not the same as just talking to someone in person, because talking to someone in person, you get more of the message. Something that I've always been told is that 90% of what you say is body language, 5% of what you say is tone, and the other 5% is what you actually say.
Exactly. So, that obviously means that if you're behind the screen, that large percentage of physicality is just lost.
Yeah, you can't get that 90% of the actual conversation.
Exactly.
You get the feel behind it, but you don't get the actual conversation.
Well, I mean, it really depends on how you describe it to really understand. Because, you can't always describe everything that happens.
Exactly. So, especially when it comes to...
I can get how you're not able to state in words how it felt or how it was.
Yeah, when it comes to sensitive matters, such as, love, I guess, it can get difficult to describe and explain. I totally understand that.
Yeah, certain emotions, like love for the matter, you can't really explain such a feeling because it's such a powerful feeling, per se.
Exactly. Yeah, Jinx. I know that about a couple of years back, a good friend of mine, two good friends of mine, they were online dating each other, and, one was living here in the UK, and the other was living, I think, in Indonesia. And they seemed to be getting along fine. But I remember telling the guy here living in the UK that, maybe an online relationship isn't the best, because when the two of you are so far apart, it's difficult to keep that long term, because it's a bit unplausible to maintain a relationship for so long when you're not able to see each other face to face for so long. I mean, there are stories of people who have online dated and then eventually meet up, but then that's rare. Most, I would say, a good 90% of online relationships never get to come to reality, come to real life, away from screens. So yeah, I definitely agree with you there. It's not something that should be considered to be long term, which again devalues the point of online dating, because if it's not going to be lasting and maintained, then what's the point in doing it? Why not go for someone in real life where you might actually have a chance of maintaining a proper relationship? for a prolonged period of time.
Right, where you can actually meet the person physically and you can get most of the message that they're trying to get across.
Yeah. I mean...
Because not most of the time that there's online dating, it's usually over text. And it's usually very... There are times that that people who are online dating get together and talk over the phone or whatever device they're using. But most of the time it's just over text, so you're only getting 5% of the message they're actually saying.
Yeah, and there's that whole, like, deal where I mean, in a way, this kind of links to pedophilia online as well, and we're delving into some really deep topics there. Online dating can be, like, a dangerous thing to do as well, because there are so many people out there who, you know, catfish and also are potentially pedophiles. You never know. I know my parents were always concerned about...
You don't know who someone is behind a screen.
Exactly.
Like, until you actually talk to them, you even after talking to them, you still don't really know who they are. Like, if you've never talked to them over a call, you wouldn't be able to know whether they were telling the truth about their gender or being able to tell the truth whether they were really who they were.
I mean, I suppose unless you kind of video call with somebody, then it's impossible to tell with absolute certainty, you know, gender, physique, you know, age of a person, because when it's behind a screen, like you said, you don't really know who's on the other end, who's on the receiving line. So
right.
That could definitely lead a lot of people, and I'm sure it's happened in the past and will happen in the future again. It'll lead a lot of people down dark holes where they will get hurt by people who might have catfished them, or even people who are even more dangerously pedophiles, you know?
Right. That goes straight back into the idea of who's behind the screen. You may never know.
And also, Kuma, have you ever online dated before? I don't think I asked you this.
Personally, I have not. I have never actually online dated.
Exactly. Like, I think like I said before, I have a couple of friends who've online dated and who are actually still online dating. And I guess I haven't really gone up to them and said that what you're doing is wrong. Like, each to their own. I'm not saying it's totally unhealthy. Like, if you want to experiment, by all means. But I guess I don't want to criticize somebody for doing something that I just personally think is, not exactly the greatest. Because I do stick to my principles. Meeting someone in real life is going to be, twice as better than anyone you meet online. Because you'll be there physically. You'll be able to extend your affection beyond the realms of digital, the digital world. So,
right. I mean, like, I have dated people in real life, and like, they have moved away, and I do still talk to a few of these people who have moved away, but I haven't dated anyone online. I have been asked before, like, I have been personally asked about a relationship online. I've never accepted, because I'm not one to trust a system. I'm not one to stick to a system and follow its rules, per se.
Yeah, no, I see where you're coming from. I guess I could say I was in a similar situation about a year and a half ago where someone was, I imagine, pretty into me, and, they were telling friends, oh, is this guy going to online date me or whatever? And, when I heard this, I was like, yeah, well, I like you, but then again, I don't want to online date because that, just in my opinion, seems a bit silly and shallow, because the passion can't be maintained as it could in real life. Like, I'm saving myself for someone in real life.
I mean, like, if the time came and, like, I was in a point in time where I could actually meet the person and they didn't actually live that far away, and I've actually talked to them for some time, maybe then, if I'm up to it, I may consider the possibility of online dating, but that's only if the factor is that I could end up meeting them at some point.
Yeah. Like, if that's a possibility in the foreseeable future, then I would say, well, that gives you more incentive to, I suppose, because you know that you could meet up with the person. Like, for example, if I met somebody online and they were living, maybe 10 kilometers away, I'd be like, yeah, sure, why not maintain this? Because, I could pop out 10 minutes away, I'm at their house and I'm seeing that. So, I feel like that would definitely give you more incentive if it's reasonable that you'd be able to, like, see them in real life. Yeah, like, the world is a scary place. Don't get me wrong.
It is.
Exactly.
It is it's a very hectic place.
Kuma, I think you and I and Andrew, by the way, is another person within the Apex zone. But I think we were having a conversation about, like, how everybody online are sadists, right? You were there for that,
right? Yeah, I was there for that conversation. Yeah, it was like, there are people who take advantage of you because of who you are as a person. I've been taken advantage of online because I have stated something that I thought I could trust a person once, and I said, hey, this is who I am. And I got judged for it, and I got rejected for it, and it turned into a downfall, which then I stopped trusting people after a while, and I just stopped giving out who I really was. I kept me as a person secret online.
Yeah, and I feel like that can be a healthy decision to make because, revealing personal information and giving away parts of yourselves to the internet can be a very dangerous thing to do. There are people who are sadists and enjoy making fun of other people, taking advantage of them, manipulating others for their own amusement. And those people, in my opinion, they exist, and I wish there weren't any of them. In an ideal world, everybody would get along, but hey ho, it's nature.
In an ideal perfect world, which, I hate to say it, there is no such thing as a perfect world, but if there was, everyone would get along. There would be no judging. There would be no mistreatment. There would be no rejection. I mean, like, there are very few people that I know online, like Uma and Panther. They know my real name. They know who I am because I've known them and I trust them. I've known Panther for 2 years now, and if I were to actually meet him in person, I would not be surprised by anything. I've never really seen him in person per se. I've never seen who he is, but I know his real name and he knows my real name. We trust each other.
Yeah, see, that trust is very valuable. It's a resource that you do not find in abundance nowadays because everybody is, they all have their own agendas, and most of the time on the internet, especially, when it comes to kids nowadays, adolescents or younger, everybody might have like a slightly darker agenda actually, because the moment you're behind
everyone
the screen,
has a secret agenda.
Because exactly, and it may not always be good because the moment you're behind a screen, your motives can change. You can be an entirely new person. You can be a dick to everybody,
You could be a dick to everyone, but there's just one person that that you're an absolute angel to, I guess you could say.
Yeah. So those bonds are the strongest. And see, that's where online dating can get extremely dodgy because the moment you commit yourself to an online relationship, things can get very personal very quickly. You can be exchanging real life information back and forth, and you can also, be exchanging realistically images of yourself that are particularly graphic. Right. And that's a huge danger. I know friends who have exchanged nudes and have just been exploited by doing this because the other person on the other end, it wasn't as genuine as they thought they were.
Right.
So that's where trust becomes so devastatingly important.
Yeah, that's where trust becomes a very big factor in just life in general.
Yeah. Which, actually now that we're discussing this, it makes me think our parents, realistically, they didn't get brought up with the internet. They didn't have, communication like we do nowadays. They had to learn how to trust people in the real world and with, real people. Whereas now, our generation, and I guess a few generations above us and generations below to come, they will all be able to experience trust friendships, responsibility, I guess maturity to extent online, or at least I guess people who have access to the internet. So they can make the mistakes that our parents did online and not be able to, endure the same consequences to such an extent. Like they can learn from the internet and be able to apply that to real life and be a lot more prepared and a lot more careful.
Right, like preparing yourself is always a good thing. Like I've said before, preparation is a key to successful life. But like sometimes preparation for things that you don't expect is always a good idea.
Exactly.
Like our recent situation, we prepared for that. We are prepared for that. Like there are in another server that I own, we are prepared for any outcome. With a few friends, we are prepared if something happens between us.
See, and that's great because you can then apply that to the real world. You're learning preparation skills and I guess how to prepare and create plans or whatever.
Yeah, how to create a contingency plan.
Exactly.
If something does happen.
Yeah, and the internet is a great medium for that because the moment that you do that online, you can do that in real life and have the experience and be able. It's almost as if like the internet is a simulator for real life. A dodgy one at that, but it is a source. It's a platform.
Dodgy, you can't trust everyone, but it is like real life.
Yeah,
there is similarities.
It's a platform to realize and understand how the real world works, and I guess sometimes the darker parts of the real world, like real life, isn't as easy as pie. It's tough.
No, it's not. It's not all sunshine and rainbows.
Exactly. The moment you're an adult. How do I pronounce that? An adult, you get thrust into a system which you have to abide by, otherwise you get screwed over. So, it can be a nasty place, and so can the internet, but at least on the internet, you don't have to suffer the consequences in real life. So, like I said, it's a good platform to prepare yourself for what's to come in later life.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
I mean, I don't know if I want to say this, but I guess the younger one gets experienced with the internet, the better, because at that age, like at a young age, you're more susceptible to things. And but in saying that, I guess the problem is that if you're young and you see things on the internet, you may not be mature enough to understand them and then potentially get, traumatized by things that you find, The internet being such an open thing, you can get exposed to all sorts of nasty things at young ages, which are not necessarily good. Like pornography, for example, or even gore or things like that. Nasty stuff.
Right. There are a lot of things on the internet that are just there. I mean, like, there are things that people find enjoyment to and find entertaining. Like, let's say YouTube, for example. YouTube is an astounding place. You can learn, you can laugh, you can cry, you can find every emotion inside of YouTube.
Yeah.
YouTube is literally a giant place that you go to when you're pretty much just bored. And you go there when everything is just down.
Yeah, and I mean, everybody has access to YouTube. Kids have access to YouTube. I know there are filters on Google and also YouTube for things like that, but it's just, there is a lot on YouTube, some of it good, some of it bad, and that bad thing, if that's shown to a younger audience, can be like potentially, detrimental for their health or whatever, their well-being.
Right. Okay, so I'm gonna relate this to my brothers.
Sure.
This is kind of going into the area of video games now, where like digital online internet kind of affects them. So my brothers picked up the recent Call of Duty games. I want to say 2-3 years ago. They started playing, and I blame myself because I introduced them to the games, but I've noticed how it's changed them. It kind of changed them. They used to be really like gentle and they wouldn't really fight a lot. And I get that my brother is getting older. He's almost my age. but going into that, he's like, because of the violent video games that they've gotten into.
Do you think that's the case? Because I know that argument has been floating around the internet for such a long time, but like lots of people say that's a myth, and lots of people say
personally, I think that the video games have affected them. I mean, like, I know they're getting older and they're becoming more like me, per se, but like, I'm not a very violent person. I mean, like, sure, I lash out when things get too heavy, but I'm not one to be violent, where my brothers are more violent than I am. Like, they kick each other, they punch each other, they'll fight with each other, but I was never one with fighting, so in my opinion, yes, I do think the video games that they play have affected their mental state.
So, I mean, I guess the burning question here is that just like being a boy, you know, is that just boyish behavior? Or can you like 100% positively attribute that to video games and violent video games?
Well, I can't per se myself, because I do have sisters and I've never seen them actually play violent video games. I mean, like, one of my sisters plays a fairly creative game. It's fairly common. I'm pretty sure we all get the reference here. It starts with an M. And
Minecraft. Yeah, there we go. I knew it. I knew it the moment you said it.
Like, I play it because it brings out a sense of creation, and it's more of a sense of imagination building.
Yeah, but
I mean, like, you can throw your imagination out onto a flat area, which then you can turn into this elaborate, massive construct.
I completely agree. Like, playing games such as Minecraft can be healthy in a way. Like, if you're doing it for the creative side, then it's definitely good because it promotes and encourages your developmental part of your brain. So it can be a good thing. Like, it expands your imagination. However, in saying that, you know, some people may be more attracted to Minecraft before playing than they would be to games like, for example, Doom, which is a heavily violent and gore.
Doom is a very gory and violent game.
Exactly.
I mean, like, personally, I love the Doom series. The Doom series is by far my favorite series, but I never really got myself to the point that it was affecting my mental state.
True. Because, you know what, I did some research about this a while ago, and I saw a nice little quote. Don't know if it's true. I guess I would still have to deliberate myself, but it said that it's not video games that causes, you know, children to be violent. It's ignorance. Would you agree with that? Or
yeah, to an extent, I would agree. I mean, like, yes, ignorance is thrown into that, but like, parents are very good at monitoring that. I mean, like, they are very good at it. That's
true. Yeah, but like, I guess some are more predisposed to like having better parents. I don't know. I mean, like, again, I would agree to an extent. Yeah, no.
I have some very good parents, and my brothers are working on their mental states of violence. I mean, like, I'm helping them. My parents are helping them. We've taken away all their privileges to violent video games, but
have you seen that have an impact yet? Or?
I've definitely seen it had an impact. They've become less violent. They're more theory. They've played a lot more Minecraft, I've noticed, and they're a lot more creative.
Huh. So that's weird, because I never thought that would actually work. Like, I guess something in the back of my head always thought that, you know, video games had no effect on someone's personality, but I guess that goes to show that it does. So you've managed to convince me of something. In any case, I think that was a pretty solid conclusion right there. Like, it's subjective, right, and we can't really properly say whether it's this or that. It's not just black and white. There's a lot of gray area involved. So
yeah. So wrapping this up, can we all agree on the fact that video games and online simulations and dating can affect your mental state, and it's not always safe, but there are plus sides to it?
Yeah, definitely. It's up to you, the person, the individual, to take control of what's going on in your life. And, you know, if that ends up hurting you, then I guess it's not always your fault.
It's on you.
Sometimes
it's on you, but it's on you to fix it.
Exactly, and it was always on you to realize that there were consequences, you know. So
yeah.
In any case, that's a pretty solid point. I think we can end it right here, right now.
Yeah. Good night, everyone.
Yeah, thanks for being here. We'll see you guys in the next podcast. Oh, God, this is a failure. No, I'm kidding. Anyways, all right. Take care. Bye-bye.